Welcome to this week's video. For this week, I'm doing my wrap-up for the month of July. We have a few books here that I would like to talk about. Uh, some I liked more than others. One I think just one I DNF'd. And it is a romance classic, so there will be plenty of people who will be surprised that I DNF'd this book. But first, we will start with a book that, an Audible, that I did read all the way through, or listen to all the way through, and it's called What I Love About You by Rachel Gibson. And let me tell you what I loved about this book. One thing, the heroine's daughter, Charlotte. Because I hated the hero. Absolutely hated him. He was such a piece of... Did not like him one itty bitty bit. We have Natalie, who is divorced from her first husband, who was a cheating ass-butt, who also embezzled a lot of money from people and was in prison and is now starting to is going to be released from prison soon. And I should not have been rooting for him and Natalie to get back together, but I was. Because I hated the hero. Her ex-husband's name is Michael, and I should not have been rooting for Michael and Natalie to get back together. The hero, I don't remember what his name is. I think it was James. I think it might have been Bo. I know that he had a twin brother, but so Natalie is raising essentially her daughter Charlotte, who is 6 years old, alone. I adored Charlotte. I know that some people don't like the plot Muppets and they don't like kids in romances or whatever. Usually, all the things that people don't like in romances, I love in romances. So, this is the person that you're listening to right now. I think she runs a photography studio, and she is looking through the photographs for like the customers and stuff, and with her friend who like works with her, and for some reason there are people who take explicit pictures and like to have them developed, um, either as a prank on Natalie and her workers, or because they think that it's okay to do that and have actual people have to look at that stuff. So she and one of her coworkers are talking about this guy who apparently is very gifted in that area. And our hero walks in and he's playing the flirty with Natalie. This is like the first sort of conversation that they're having. And they're not getting off on really like the right foot, kind of. Because I think he had met her daughter first and he was like very curt and rude to her and stuff, but kids are resilient and Charlotte ends up loving him for, I don't know why. But so the hero and Natalie are talking, and he apparently had overheard her talking about, her and her coworker talking about this guy who had these pictures developed, who was gifted in that area. And this guy, this hero, says to Natalie, because he's trying to like flirt with her and get a date with her, but she's like holding, like giving him the brush off and like basically like refusing to go out with him because she has a daughter and she, isn't really in the mood for a relationship, and she's like focused on her daughter and she doesn't want sort of any like just random guy. She's very sort of gun shy and doesn't want to do the relationship. Like she's not interested in like just dating, and she's sort of not ready for a relationship yet, so she doesn't want to get involved sort of at all. But our hero is trying to be all charming and pushy, and after having overheard her and her coworker talking about the pictures that they saw, he says to her, "Well, if you really want to see a monster cock, you know where I live." Excuse me? This person that you don't even know, you're saying this to a woman you barely know? Really? That's not charming. That's not sexy. That's gross. If I was even like attracted to a guy and he said that to me, attraction's over. Attraction's over. That's disgusting. That's gross. No, thank you. But I kept reading. Because I was like, okay, maybe he like gets better. No, he doesn't get better. He is a he was a soldier and he was dealing with like PTSD, or he's dealing with PTSD through alcoholism. Fine, all the that's tough, admittedly. And so he's just sort of wants to play the field and wants to just sleep around and doesn't want anything serious. Natalie has told him repeatedly she's not looking for a casual fling. She's not looking to sleep around. But he ends up sort of keeps pursuing her and eventually gets her to bring her walls down, just for him to then turn around, and when he decides that he's not good enough for her and that he has too many problems and doesn't want to bring her down with his problems, he decides that he's going to dump her. And that's when I fast forwarded any scenes that the two of them were together and only read the Charlotte bits. Because I was like, fuck you. What you did to this woman was unforgivable. You pursued her and refused to take no for an answer when she kept holding you off and telling you that she was not a casual sex type of person. And you were all like, I'm just looking for something fun. And then you got her daughter to fall in love with you. This little girl adored him. And it was to the point where when the ex-husband came back, and the heroine was all like, I can't forgive you for what you did, and I'll let you be in Charlotte's life because you're her father, but that's it. We don't have anything more. I was at the point where like I wanted her to give him another chance because I hated the piece of shit who was pursuing her now and who was supposedly the hero. Oh, I hated him so much. I hated him so much. So that book did not work for me. The only thing I liked about that book was Charlotte, the 6-year-old. So DNF for that one. Then I read, let's do the Harlequin that I did. Spaniard's Baby of Revenge by Claire Connolly. Now, admittedly, I was going to DNF this book, and I'm glad that I didn't, because the first chapter or two is when Antonio and Emilia first meet. Their families are like bitter enemies, and her father did something to his father, so he of course wants revenge, and he's gonna get her to give the shares of the company so that he can have complete control. But when they meet, their passion for each other is so overwhelming that they have sex on their first meeting. And just, it wasn't like they met and like they didn't know like who each other were, and it was just weird. Their first sex scene, because like I get it, like after she finds out like what he's up to, she, throws him out and wants nothing to do with him. But then, surprise, she gets pregnant. And so he's all like, I want to be in my baby's life and I want to marry you. And, what happened between us had nothing to do with my revenge. And I was overcome with passion for you. And that it was all real and genuine and blah, blah, blah. But I just felt the setup for her getting pregnant was not, and I know that this is a Harlequin Presents, so they're all about the crazy sauce melodrama, but it has to be somewhat grounded. Like, the scene has to make sense. And for me, knowing like the kind of character that Amelia was, like she was a serious girl, and it just didn't make sense to me that she would all of a sudden feel this grand passion for this dude who she's had spoken like 5 words to since he walked in the door, and they're tearing each other's clothes off. Like, it didn't make sense with the way that Amelia was set up as a character. And I get it was supposed to show that their passion for each other was so great that she took such leave of her senses. So, okay. But if you can get past that ridiculous first chapter or so, I absolutely adored the rest of this book. Absolutely. Because, yes, for the longest time, once he realizes that like she's pregnant and everything, and that like he wants to be like a family with her, and he wants to raise their children and or child, and like he does love her, even though of course he doesn't say so. But he has this need for revenge against her brother, who now holds the shares of the family of the company that he wants to take over, because I think her father died. So he is determined to get his revenge, but he wants to have the family that he has with Amelia. And she's like, how is this going to work? How are we going to raise this baby and be a family when you hate the side of my family? And so that's sort of like the conflict between them. And there's like a certain point where she is just, I can't do this anymore. I can't take your hatred of my family. This is not going to work. I need you to put me and the baby ahead of your revenge and let go of your revenge. And he's all like, I can't do that. So I really liked that she walked away and she was like, F this shit, I'm out. And I adored how she makes him work to get her back. She makes him grovel to get her back. And it's wonderful. So if you can get past the first ridiculous chapter, or their first love scene, this is going on my keeper shelf. Even though the first bit was ridiculous, this is going on my keeper shelf. So that is Claire Connolly's Spaniard's Baby of Revenge. So next we have Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I liked the first half of this book, not so much the second half. Although the second half does have some crazy ass revelations. So if you don't know, it's the story of little Pip, who is brought in, asked to be a playmate to this young girl, Estella, and her adoptive mother, I guess, Mrs. Havisham, who Mrs. Havisham has some issues. She is dealing with a broken engagement from very, very long ago, and she has never recovered. So she's the cheese has a little bit slid off her cracker. And she is determined that she's going to raise Estella to break Pip's heart deliberately because she hates all men. So this poor innocent boy is being brought into this world and as this playmate for Stella. Then he gets, and he comes upon this prisoner and helps the prisoner in a graveyard or something. He like brings him food and clothes and all this. And then we never see the prisoner again. Put a pin in that. Pip is being raised by his piece of shit sister and her wonderful husband, Joe. I loved Joe. If I had a favorite character in this book, it's Joe. I absolutely loved Joe. It would be Pip, except for when Pip gets an offer from an anonymous benefactor to basically be an opportunity for him to be a gentleman. So this anonymous benefactor will give him money to get an education, to be introduced into society, to totally remake himself, this poor boy Pip, as a gentleman. And so Pip is like, yes, sir, this is all that I ever wanted. And because he wants to be not only a gentleman looks like for himself, but he wants to be worthy of Estella, who he has now fallen in love with. But the whole deal is he can't tell anybody. He can't ever find out who the benefactor is. He can't try to investigate. He can't, none of that. Okay, fine. And then, so Pip grows, this turns into like the second half of the book where Pip, is being, brought into this higher society world than he was raised in. And he becomes a little bit of a trash human. Because he pretty much turns his back on Joe and Biddy? Betty? Bippy? I don't remember what her name is, but there's this other woman. When Joe was the one who was his one friend in the house, because again, Joe's wife is a trash human, is a piece of shit, but I really liked Joe's reasoning for why he stayed married to Pip's sister. And it was because Joe had been raised in an abusive household, and he swore to himself that he would never hit his wife or be abusive to his wife or show any anger against his wife. So he sort of went too far in the other direction and sort of let Pip's sister walk all over him. But he did, he was there to comfort Pip when his sister would abuse him and beat him and just be totally awful to him. So for then Pip to turn around and completely turn his back on Joe because Joe wasn't educated and of a high society, I didn't like Pip very much in the second half. And I kind of just didn't really like him as a character. I kind of wanted him to get thrown out a window. But when we came to the part of the anonymous benefactor and him, so he keeps, his part of the deal and like tries to like not find out who the anonymous benefactor is. And I had two guesses. And I really, really wanted it to be one, but I suspected that it could also be another. So I suspect, and I'm going to spoil it for y'all, so I might do like a timestamp thing where if you don't want to know. So I thought that it would either be Mrs. Havisham kind of pushing him into Stella's world for even like to more seriously like cement him in that world so that it would hurt even more when Stella rejected him. Or I really wanted it to be somehow the prisoner that he helped when he was little. Those were my two guesses. And I was right. And who I wanted it to be, it was. So it was the prisoner that he helped, who, it's explained, but somehow he came up sort of in the world and like had money somewhere, or got money, and he, I'm sure there were like more like selfish motives that sort of went over my head, but I like to think that he helped Pip because Pip helped him. But Pip, again, was not very appreciative of this because he thought of like the scandal of like, oh my God, I'm ruined. A man who was a prisoner is responsible for my fortune in becoming a gentleman. And so he's like, Pip is horrified, and again made me like not like him very much again. And at this point, he and Stella do like sort of grow closer, but because of Mrs. Havisham's pressuring of Stella, she breaks his heart. She breaks Pip's heart, and ends up marrying some guy who's like a piece of crap, and then she like comes to her senses and, you know, comes back and wants Pip to forgive her, which apparently is not how it originally, or how it ended in like one of the versions, but thankfully this had like that ending. I think it was because Charles Dickens actually wanted it to be like wanted them not to reunite, and then the publisher was like, no, you have to have a happy ending. And then it turns out that the prisoner dude, his benefactor, Stella's father! Stella's real father! So that I did not see coming. I was hoping that he would be the benefactor, but I did not see that he was going to end up being Stella's father. So I liked that revelation a lot, that whole bit with the prisoner and those revelations. But as a book, the second half, Pip's sort of journey into society and blah, 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 and him turning his back on Jo, did not like that. It dragged his, like, coming into society and blah, blah, blah. But then, like, the last few chapters or so with all, like, the crazy revelations, that was bananas. So this book is a sort of definite roller coaster of a book. Definitely. So I liked it. I didn't love it, but it was hella entertaining at times. So, Great Expectations, I think it's a little overrated. Next we have Daniel Silva's The Order, which I enjoyed. And it's sort of in the same vein of like Steve Barry, Daniel Brown, you know, conspiracy theories, mysteries. I liked it. I particularly liked the end. I liked the end very much. I really like how this book ended. But for the most part, it was just okay. It was okay. You have the hero, Gabriel, who was like a art guy, but he's also like a spy. And this is like a book in his sort of like series. So there is references to other books in this book, but it didn't bother me to get like little like spoilery things about other books that I hadn't read. Didn't bother me. might bother you, but and he is called in to by his friend Luigi Donati, when it is discovered that the Pope has been murdered, and there's this organization that's involved called the Order of Saint Helena, and there's this, of course, there's this lost gospel that is supposedly the gospel of Pontius Pilate. There's all kind of gospels around. There's as many lost gospels in conspiracy books as there are dukes in Regency romances. There's always a gospel popping up, a missing, lost, secret gospel. There's always a duke popping up in Regency England. Some random duke that nobody knows about. Some made-up duke. So it's sort of that kind of thing. So yeah, I liked it. Really liked the end. But for the most part, it was okay. Nothing really stand out and nothing really new sort of about it. It's sort of, if you like conspiracy type Dan Brown, Steve Berry, those kinds of books, which I do, you'll enjoy this book. So yeah. Then we have Lynsay Sands, An English Bride in Scotland. So I got some nice reading done this month of July. I got a nice chunk done. It's Annabelle, and she is supposed to be becoming a nun, and because her sister is supposed to marry this Scottish Ross dude. Except the sister, Kate, runs off and runs off with the stable boy. And so, to fulfill the contract, the parents grab Annabelle from the convent and's like, okay, now you have to marry the dude because your sister took off. And Annabelle is like, but nun though. And then they're like, no, contract. And then she's like, but not good at wifing because studying to be nun. And they're like, contract. Okay, fine. So Annabelle is this delightful character, and Ross immediately is very happy with the wife that he has, and is kind of grateful, put a pin in that, as to how grateful, that this Kate woman ran off, and he gets this wife who he falls in love with, and everybody in the house, in the keep, loves. But a little bit attacking starts happening. Mysterious attackings start happening to our poor Annabelle. And Kate shows up again. And turns out that Kate, and again, I'm going to spoil, and the guy that she ran off with, that didn't pan out the way that Kate wanted. So she doesn't want to be poor anymore. So she's decided that she's going to come and steal all of, insinuate into herself into Kate's, or Annabelle and Ross's life, and kidnap Annabelle to hold her for ransom so that she can get Ross's money and be rich. Because she can't stand that she has had to live in poverty with Grant, who's apparently not the best dude, not in terms of personality, but because he's poor and they haven't been able to make a success of their lives. And so she's jealous that Annabelle is happy with Ross, and so she's decided that she's going to kidnap Annabelle and take Ross's money because she is jealous of Annabelle and she thinks that the life that Annabelle has should have been hers. So, poor Grant, poor stupid Grant, is coerced by Kate into these secret attacks on Annabelle before it's finally Grant finally does kidnap her with and Kate is discovered to sort of be behind it. And Ross is basically like so happy that this Kate sister ran off with like Grant, and that Ross is so happy that he didn't marry her, and he tells like Annabelle this because Kate goes a little bit crazy, a little bit very much crazy when Ross comes and like rescues Annabelle, and Kate sort of like loses her mind, and Grant, God help him, I don't think Kate kills him, but Grant ends up dying. That poor stupid Grant, who listened to Kate, and Ross saves Annabelle and like lets her know in no uncertain terms that he's glad that she's the one that he married, because clearly Kate's cheese has slid off her cracker. We've had a lot of crazy people in this vlog. A lot of crazy characters. So I absolutely loved this book. I loved Annabelle as a character. She was just wonderful. I loved Ross, and I loved, how much in love with his wife he was. Because she was, like, when she tells him, when it's finally revealed that, like, I don't know anything about being a wife, I was going to be a nun. And then he's like, oh, that's hard. That's, that is, like, that must be really difficult for you. Let's have sex. And then she's like, oh, I don't know anything about being a wife, and, like, I have no clothes, because we ran, like, to your keep really, like, quickly, and I didn't have time to, like, get any pretty clothes because I was going to be a nun. And he's like, yeah, that's really difficult. Let's have sex. I'm sad because my sister is banana sandwich crazy, and I don't, like, she was always, like, the beautiful one. And then he's like, no, you're the beautiful one. I love you. Let's have sex. So it was like, any time that there was, like, Annabelle was, like, worried about something or afraid or anything, he was, like, there to comfort her, and then there to comfort her. So I loved Ross sort of as a character. I loved Annabelle. I loved the two of them together. And yeah, cannot recommend enough. This was such a good book. Absolutely loved it. And now we come to the classic that I DNF'd. And it's not for the reason likely that you think I would DNF it, because I didn't get that far. We have Whitney, My Love by Judith McNaught. Now, I know that this is a classic in Romancelandia. I don't know why, considering in the first chapter or so, I'm going to tell you why in a second. So we have Whitney, who is this young girl who is, she's a hellion, and she's not like other girls, and she, she bucks the system, and she wants to make her own rules, but she is also in love with this dude named Paul. Now, Paul is like, you's a little girl, this is not gonna happen, stop following me everywhere. But Whitney, she no listen. So finally her father is like, I don't know what to do with you, so I'm going to give you to my sister, or either my brother and his wife, or my sister and his wife, her husband. I'm going to give you to your aunt and your uncle, and let them raise you, because I can't do nothing for you. I can't do nothing with you. But his wife actually really likes Whitney and likes her spirit. So they are, they get off to a great start. They get along really well. And I'm going to tell you why I DNF'd this book. It's not because of the supposedly problematic elements, because I didn't get that far. And I particularly DNF'd this book because this is a republishing. This was originally in 1985, and they republished it in 1999, and supposedly they made some changes because I guess of like the problematic elements, and I don't know like how much of that is like still in here or what. But the fact that they didn't take this stupid scene out and apparently changed other things, but yet kept this scene, I DNF the book. And I'm going to read that little bit of that scene to you now. So, Whitney is off somewhere. She's reading a book. And her aunt comes upon her reading a book. So, the aunt comes upon her. Is that a romantic novel? No, aunt, Whitney demurely uttered, carefully placing her hand over the title of the book to conceal it from her aunt's eyes. I'm told most young ladies adore romantic novels. Anne tried again. Yes, aunt, Whitney agreed politely. I read one once, but I didn't like it, Anne remarked, her mind groping for some other topic that might draw Whitney into conversation. I could not abide a heroine who was too perfect, nor one who was forever swooning. That's fair. That is fair. But this is... Whitney was so astonished to discover that she wasn't the only female in all of England who didn't devour the insipid things, that she instantly forgot her resolution to speak only in monosyllables. And when the heroines aren't swooning, she added, her entire face lighting up with laughter, they are lying about with hartshorn bottles up their nostrils, moping and pining away for some faint-hearted gentleman who hasn't the gumption to offer for them, or else has already offered for some other unworthy female. I could never just lie there doing nothing, knowing the man I loved was falling in love with a horrid person. Granted, yeah, she's not just letting Paul fall in love with somebody else. She is like going after him. But the fact that he doesn't want her and she's still going after him, shut your mouth, Whitney. You're a stupid idiot. But Whitney darted a glance at her aunt to see if she was shocked, but her aunt was regarding her with an unexplainable smile lurking at the corners of her eyes. Aunt Anne, could you actually care for a man who dropped to his knees and said, Oh, Clarabelle, your lips are the petals of a red rose, and your eyes are 2 stars from the heavens? With a derisive snort, Whitney finished, That is where I would have leapt for the hartshorn. And so would I, Anne said, laughing. What do you read, then, if not atrocious romantic novels? I'm sorry. What genre is this? Right here? Maybe you don't slam the genre and the readers of that genre when you're writing that genre? Maybe? Maybe just me? A little bit? Perhaps? Am I wrong? The fact that Judith McNaught, would trash the romance genre within the romance novel that she is writing. Are you kidding me? I DNF'd it. I was like, no, I don't care if this is a classic. I don't know. I don't understand how people can get past that scene and continue and enjoy and love this book. You updated this book to 1999, and you and your editors didn't think, maybe we don't want to denigrate the readers of the genre that we're trying to attract? Maybe? The fact that you and your editors didn't have the brains to cut that scene? No, thank you. I don't care if this is a classic. This is a piece of shit for doing that. And Judith McNaught, I don't care if she is a paragon in the romance community. I don't know if she's still with us. But if I don't care the fame that she has sort of in the romance genre, because in that one section, she just trashed all of us. So, fuck you, Judith McNaught. Goodbye. So, those were the books that I read or DNF'd in July. A pretty good reading month, I would say. I don't have a new audiobook set up yet. I am so close to finishing Rilla of Ingleside, the last book in the Anne of Green Gables series by Lucy Maud Montgomery. I have just that little bit left, and I was kind of hoping that I would finish it yesterday and include it in my wrap-up today, but that didn't happen, so this will be carried over into August's wrap-up. And in terms of my Take to Work book, I have started The German Midwife by Mandy Robotham, and this is about a woman who is in the camps. I'm not sure if it's Auschwitz, or who is in a concentration camp in World War II, and she helps the prisoners there who are pregnant to give birth. Sadly, none of them get to keep their babies. The babies are all horribly killed by the Nazis. So she is basically there to help. Like, she's there helping the women, even though all the endings of those pregnancies are horrific. And then she is called in by one of the Nazi officers, taken to a house because her services are needed, but she does not know yet by who. But in the blurb, it's not spoiling it, because in the blurb it tells you that it's Eva Braun, who is Hitler's girlfriend. I don't think she was ever his wife. I think she was just his girlfriend, and she's pregnant with Hitler's baby. So now she, Anke, A-N-K-A, I don't know how to pronounce that, is brought in to be a midwife for Eva Braun. So I've just sort of started it, and she's been taken to this house. She doesn't know yet who she's there to help, but I imagine she's going to find out pretty soon. So that's what I'm reading right now. Nothing picked out on Audible yet, but hopefully I'll pick something in the next week or so. So that is going to be it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you've read any of these books and like what you thought of them. If you disagree with me about Whitney, My Love, I'm happy that you enjoyed the book, and I'm happy that many enjoyed the book and think of it as a romance classic. That's great for you. I don't want you to come and tell me that I'm wrong for DNFing it, or that I shouldn't speak that way about a romance classic. I'm like, well, Judith McNaught spoke that way about romance, so F that. But yes, if you've read any of these books and you've liked them and you just want to tell me that you liked them, by all means, tell me that in the comments. That's great. Yes, that's going to be it for this week's video. Follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/authorejamie. Like my Facebook page at facebook.com/authorejamie, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!